Hello, everyone. My name is Jerry Wise. I'm a life and relationship coach, and this video is entitled Follow the Anxiety to Change You in the System. I've been a life and relationship coach for probably close to 45 years now, and I work on specializing in self-differentiation and family systems approach to recovery and healing. I work with codependents and families and addictions and adult children of narcissists, adult children of dysfunctional families. And this video has come out of my interaction with viewers and clients about wanting to learn more about systems feelings and how systems feelings guide and propel us in our interactions with in our relationships. And the first point that I wanted to make is we function, feel, and think and behave in an emotional relationship system, or an emotional field that includes the present and goes back to previous generations. In other words, when we do our relationships and as we interact in our relationships, it goes far beyond the present moment. We are dealing with our fight or flight system in our brain. We're dealing with the emotional memory of generations that also impact us inside. And also we are dealing with our family of origin when we interact in our relationships. And that emotional field that we are a part of can be very helpful in us identifying that, at least to some degree, much of this emotional field is unconscious. However, we can learn to become more aware of it. Are we ever perfectly aware of it? Well, probably not. However, I think we can become more aware of it, and this can guide us in our healing and how we function in relationships and find ourselves in greater freedom, greater self-differentiation, greater calmness, and greater awareness of what's going on, which can help protect us as well as help guide us and to help us to formulate problems as they arise. And the better we formulate these problems, the more we can resolve them for ourselves. Second of all, systems feelings are what we feel to keep us functioning in our relationships. The way our puzzle piece should fit into the system, the way we have been imprinted or have been taught, modeled, what we have absorbed to fit into our family system, our marriage, our friendship systems, our work systems. There's always an emotional process going on. And I think more companies are becoming more aware of this emotional system and how it affects production, productivity, leadership, and I consult with family businesses and also other businesses about this emotional process, which can really lead to a better solution for organizations as well as for families, marriages, relationships, because that emotional process is everywhere. And if you're stuck or you have those problems, this is a way we can begin to look past those and look beyond them and also find some real answers. So we have been taught how to, and we have absorbed how to be in our family of origin and also our other relationships, even work relationships. when we unconsciously comply, we feel certain feelings, or we don't feel certain feelings. If we always comply and are, say, codependent or we're enmeshed, and we just go along with the system, many times we can feel negative feelings, but at least we won't feel as much anxiety, let's say. And the difficulty comes when we attempt to step outside our role, our learned, absorbed functioning, then we feel certain feelings that come up to get us to go back to the way we were supposed to be functioning. It could be certainly underneath it is anxiety. I'm going to talk about this anxiety and follow the anxiety. And then the anxiety produces shame, guilt, fear, abandonment, rejection, and then that keeps us in line. And I think many of us don't realize how much those feelings are a function of the system, not just a function within us. It plays a role in the system. What role does my guilt play? What role does my depression play? What role does my shame play? What role does my abandonment feelings play? Because they're all there for us to function in a certain way. When we attempt to change our role, our functioning in the emotional process in relationship systems, this provokes resistance, which will then ignite systems feelings. And the work is to overcome what we feel, and the work is to overcome what they feel or do in response to our stepping outside of our normal functioning. For example, if somebody's grown up with guilt all the time, or shame all the time, and then they become an adult and they don't want to live under just guilt and shame all the time, and that's their normal functioning. Well, guess what? If you attempt to function or to live apart from that guilt or shame, you're going to get a lot of resistance from the system. There's going to be a lot of resistance for you giving up that role. And I was just talking to a client not too many days ago, and she was talking about how difficult it was to give up her sense of guilt over her parenting, or shame over how she was an imperfect parent, which most all of us are and were. Some to a greater degree than others. I understand that. But then I began to ask her about, well, what would your life be like if you didn't have that guilt or shame about that? Well, of course, her first response is, oh, it'd be wonderful. I'd feel great. I would have a burden lifted. I would feel better. And then I'm going, well, I understand that would probably be the case, but that's not why you keep holding on to the guilt and shame. If you let go of the guilt and shame, what would be the downsides? And then all of a sudden we begin to realize how many ways that would impact my relationship with other people, what they would think, what they would believe, how they might view me, that I would not be remorseful. I wouldn't be the good Christian person, a parent I wanted to be, that someone might think, I don't care about my children if I don't have that shame and guilt about my parenting that was not perfect and may have been even very dysfunctional. And so I can't live with that, so I keep in my same puzzle piece in the puzzle and keep functioning as that bad parent that I was, because I can't break out of that, because how would the system adjust to that? How would my kids adjust? How would my parents adjust? How would my spouse adjust? How would everybody have to adjust if I didn't have that shame and guilt? And as a result of having that unconscious desire to not challenge everybody by my giving up shame and guilt, I just keep hold of the shame and guilt, and then I just fit into the system the same old way I always have. For example, when we resist our learned and absorbed role, let's say, for example, you and your extended family always meet on Christmas Day for lunch. But this year, you'd like to have Christmas Day for your nuclear family. And I come from a Christian background, so I tend to use Christian examples, but it could be Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, it could be any kind of holiday examples, where the family has a certain tradition and a certain expectation and role for everyone in the family. But this year, I'd like to have Christmas Day for my own nuclear family. Say the kid's mom and me and us and the kids. And that maybe I could do the extended family at some other time. As soon as you start thinking that, we start to feel anxious or we start to feel fearful. We may not even be aware of it, because a lot of systems anxiety is not conscious. We're not used to being aware of that. And we start feeling anxious or fearful about the response to your desire to differentiate from the way the family has always functioned and the way you're supposed to function in the family. And, and to differentiate from this or from the family and from this family time, which always has to be lunch on Christmas Day, or to ask what your nuclear family needs and wants, is just going to cause an uproar within the family. Your feelings of guilt, anxiety, or fear is to keep you functioning in the family the same way. Their resistance is also to keep you functioning in the same way so that there's no change. Because everybody's, at least on the surface, comfortable with the status quo. Though many times the whole family is not comfortable with that status quo. But everybody stays with it or pretends to be okay with that status quo so that they don't get rejected or accused of being unloyal or disloyal to the family or lots of other reasons. So, the anxiety plus the fear or the guilt or the shame equals systems feelings. And that anxiety produces those feelings so that you will stay in line. You ask your mom and dad and siblings, and of course, you talk about that as about making a change, and they are all very upset or resistant to that. And then you may feel hopeless, stuck, hurt, guilty, maybe shame as well. And these are systems feelings resulting from their resistance. They don't want you to change. They want you to change back and just let's do it like we've always done it every year. Are you really doing anything that's worthy of hopelessness, stuckness, hurt, guilty, or shameful? No. You're not doing anything that would initiate any of those feelings or warrant those feelings. You're simply wanting to have Christmas with your nuclear family and arrange other times in which you would be with your extended family because you would like to have that holiday yourself. And that's not illegal. It's not improper. It's not meant to hurt anyone. It's not meant to show you don't love anybody in the family. So all of those feelings are not warranted. They're systems feelings so that you will not change. That's why they're there. This last set of feelings that I mentioned are present to help you navigate back to the functioning you have had in the past of either being enmeshed, over-functioning, a caretaker, or some other roles that it could be: scapegoat, victim, golden child. There's all kinds of roles we play within the family. The one who's oversensitive, the one who causes problems, whatever role we have been cast in, there will be systems feelings if we attempt to step out of that. Remember, those feelings are not true feelings that fit you being ashamed of something you've actually done, or guilt over something you should even feel guilty for. They're there so that you will function and function in the emotional process of the family in a certain way. And in fact, their purpose is for you to change back and to be the way, and do it the way we've always done it. The extended family's anxiety regulates your anxiety, and your anxiety regulates theirs. And anxiety, this chronic anxiety, which is underneath most relationship systems and goes back generations and generations about how we function, that we are connected in that way, in which my anxiety regulates yours, your anxiety regulates mine. To self-differentiate is to begin to detach from that anxiety system, so that I'm not just always pushing and pulling as a result of that anxiety connection that we have. And all families have this connection. We as human beings live in a limbic, way back here, this part of the brain back there, live in a limbic world run by, in my notion, anxiety or calmness, feelings or thoughts, reactivity or response. And we live in this limbic world. And so I see most everything through a telescope or through a viewing binoculars or glasses that is either calmness or anxiety. And I think it's a good model to have, because it will guide you as to how to function and navigate your own life in this calmness or anxiety system that we're all in. I have really found the anxiety calmness model of viewing relationships to be very helpful. As a result, I try to follow the anxiety. Many people tend to follow the problems, or figure out why the problems are happening, or figure out why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. Maybe I'm feeling what I'm feeling because I've been triggered by the anxiety in the system, and these feelings are to keep me in line. And so it seems even more helpful to go even underneath further and see the anxiety and how it plays, and to follow the anxiety. I think that can even be more helpful in systems and in growing myself up, learning how to operate with other people. Think of your family or your relationships hooked up to an electrical grid. I try to observe where the electricity or anxiety, the chronic anxiety, and there's acute anxiety and chronic anxiety. If someone comes to me and says, you're going to be soon meeting your favorite celebrity, I might tend to feel more anxious. And that would be more acute anxiety. Chronic anxiety is the anxiety that I got from my family of origin, that is always operating at a low level or a high level, depending upon what I've learned, what I've absorbed, and what level my parents experienced in terms of chronic anxiety from their parents. And that chronic anxiety is often unconscious. The acute anxiety is conscious. And if we try to observe where the electricity or anxiety flows and we watch it within the system, and also can watch if there are any circuit breakers to this anxiety. And I'm going to give you an example today of what I mean by that, which may help you understand what I'm talking about more. I watch for surges and even flows of this anxiety or this electricity, or reduce need for the surges, or reduce need for the anxiety. And the more efficient, or I think differentiated, with power we are, the less need for the greater surge of anxiety, if we can be more efficient. And I think of self-differentiation as operating more efficiently in an emotionally or anxiety-driven system, as all relationships are. And in fact, we know when there's a dyad, which is two people, a dyad, two-person relationship system, the dyad is always going to be chronically unstable. It's going to be stable for a while, but eventually it's going to fall out. There'll be too much anxiety that happens, and then we either have too much togetherness or too much separateness. And then we'll add a third person to balance out this anxiety, and that's the triangle. So remember that a dyad, a two-person system, is almost always chronically unstable. And in fact, even organizational systems, marriages, tend to be chronically unstable, but they will keep trying to stabilize themselves with anxiety and systems feelings. So, the more efficient or calm, the more self-differentiated we are, the less we reinforce the surges, and the more we can be a circuit breaker for the system and for the electrical grid, which I want to be less of a conduit for this chronic anxiety. And if I can see the anxiety, I can begin to be more of a circuit breaker. If I get focused on the problems or the content, I tend to be more of a conduit for the anxiety. If I can follow the anxiety, then I can tend to be more effective in reducing the anxiety in the system, and certainly reducing it for me, which is what I think is my goal. Let's talk about John and his mom. And sometimes people will say, well, Jerry, you're always using moms as the problem. No, I use dads, I use sisters, brothers, but I mean, we have moms and dads and brothers. You could put John and dad. You could put mom and her daughter. You can put the daughter and her dad. I mean, I'm just using this as an example. John and his mom. John has always had anxiety with his mother's enmeshment, attachment, intrusiveness, lack of boundaries, and low respect for him as an adult, treating him like a child. And again, we tend to treat our children, our adult children, like children because of our anxiety. Do you know that? That's why we don't grow up. We still have that chronic anxiety, and then we'll treat our children like they're still children rather than allowing them to be adults because of our chronic anxiety that many times we're not even aware of or haven't become aware of. And so, John's chronic systems anxiety is pretty high when dealing with his mother. It always has been, since as a child, even now as a 39-year-old adult. For many years, he was not aware of this chronic anxiety. He just called it, I just have a frustrating relationship with mom. I mean, that's the best way he could, that our personalities clash, or we just don't agree on a lot of things, or I'm unhappy with how she treats me. And then she would say she's unhappy with how John treats her. And that's about as far as the insight would go, and not realizing, we have this underlying anxiety that we don't know how to manage. Neither John nor his mom know how to manage it. John has just moved and is living in a foreign country, which raises his mom's anxiety, and so she becomes even more attached to John. And she tries to attach to John more because she's more worried and more anxious about his living situation. She asking John, well, where do you live? Is it a good spot in the city? Do you worry about getting robbed? How much are they paying for you paying you for this new job? And of course, when mom's chronic anxiety is expressed through these questions, intrusiveness and enmeshment, then it raises John's chronic anxiety, and then he wants to hang up, lash out, get reactive, mom, it's not your business, or not call at all and talk to mom. Or comply and just, oh, well, I'll just try to keep the anxiety down. I'll just answer her questions and, but I don't really want to, but I'll just do that to keep the peace. Or I'll just cut off from mom. I'm so tired of mom asking me all these questions. I don't want to talk about those things. And there are times that I would certainly do that with my own mother, because my own mother would do that out of her anxiety. And she would ask questions that it's like, what am I? And in one of my videos, I think I talk about the haircut situation. She even would become anxious about my hair. Now, mind you, I don't have a lot of hair. But if it wasn't cut, she would become anxious about it. And it's like, oh gosh, there we got to go again. We got to deal. Why does she care what my hair looks like or what other people might think about my hair? And I talk about that whole situation in that video. And so we want to do something to try to resist that enmeshment or resist the anxiety that's in the system. But John, like myself, still looking for loving, mature connection with mom, acceptance, a nice, easy adult relationship with her, which may be a fantasy, and probably often is, for himself and for her. I'm not just blaming mom. I'm not just blaming mom as the whole problem. I'm saying we have fantasy notions for ourselves and for our parents or for others in relationships. He still needs her love and acceptance, looking for a mom that he's always wanted. And you should honor your father and your mother. So we have that whole dynamic that kind of goes in there. And we will tend to sanctify family relationships. And John says, Mom, stop it. I'm tired of all these questions. And Mom goes, well, okay. Leaving the blame for the problem where? With John. Well, okay. If you're going to be this way. And so many times with narcissists and with other people and an unstable dyad, people will not be aware of how their anxiety is causing them and compelling them to act. And then when others get frustrated and they are reactive, guess where the problem falls? With the person that is reactive. Oh, well, you're getting all oversensitive and reactive now. Yeah, but you've just been crazy making with your anxiety that you're not managing. So let's follow the anxiety with John and his mother. John already starts out with a certain level of chronic anxiety in that he feels obligated to call mom. Doesn't always really enjoy it, doesn't really know what to talk about, but she is my mom, so I feel obligated to call her. If he doesn't call her, he feels anxious. And in fact, that anxiety starts coming out in guilt, fear, or obligation feelings, which are systems feelings. And if he doesn't call her, he feels anxious. He feels anxious when he does call her. So he's stuck in anxious or anxious. And that's going into the conversation. Asking himself, what will she do and what will she ask? And I wonder what it's going to be this time. And I'm tired of doing that. I hope she doesn't do it. I just hope she does. I'll cross my fingers and just hope she doesn't ask those questions so I don't have to deal with that discomfort or anxiety. And what will I do? How will I react? Will I get overreactive? Will mom, have her anxiety, then my anxiety will be pinging, and then we'll get into this reactivity dance that we do? And by the way, I might mention a great book called The Dance of Anger by Harriet Lerner, which talks about that pinging process. The dance of anxiety. She has the dance of fear, and the dance of intimacy. And she talks about this dance because it is a dance. And if we can see it as a dance, we can begin to change ourselves in that dance. John tends to be very other focused on mom. What is she going to do? What is she going to ask? And not very self-focused in terms of his anxiety going in or his anxiety while he's talking with her. He's also, just like mom, not self-defined or self-aware, which if we can become more self-defined and more self-aware, we will have less anxiety, we will be triggered less, and we'll also kind of know what we're doing to navigate this relationship. John has not defined for himself what type of relationship he wants to have with mom, what frequency, and the nature of the relationship he wants with his mother. He doesn't know. His mom is also not well defined. She's just acting out of habit, anxiety, routine, and this chronic anxiety. That's how you do the relationship. Not much awareness, just a part of the way the emotional system in this family has always worked. When neither are self-defined, the system and system's feelings will govern and regulate the relationship. Let me say that again. When neither party are self-defined, the system, the emotional system, the system's feelings will govern and regulate the relationship, much to the unhappiness of both people. I wanted to mention at this point, I've got a workshop coming up July 17th. It's called Standing Strong as an Adult Child of a Narcissist. That's on July 17th, 2021. I hope you will join me on that Saturday. It's going to be on Zoom. You can sign up on my website. There's also a link below in the description. So, John calls mom. Mom is very anxious and eager to hear from her son because she's still worrying about him. She worries incessantly about her 39-year-old son. Lots of anxiety. Out of her anxiety, she pulls a mom move and asks about his move, his job, his salary, where he's living, who he's meeting. These are all questions to manage her chronic anxiety. The information is not so critical. It's to manage the anxiety in her. Mom bores down in John's life to relieve her anxiety, while the result is racing John's anxiety because he's not happy with these questions. He doesn't like answering all these things. He's not sure that he wants to tell mom all of this, but he's not sure. He's not defined in the relationship. And so it's just this pinging between mom and he. John came in anxious and now feels stuck with mom and his anxiety, and it increases as a result of these questions starting to come. Neither mom nor John recognize the flow of anxiety between them. and due to their unawareness, neither know how to function or what to do other than react to the anxiety in the system. They don't know how to control it, deal with it, manage it, see it, watch it. They are just, well, Mom's being difficult and now John's being difficult because he doesn't want to answer the questions. So, that's kind of the superficial layer of understanding that they have. John's being not kind and answering my questions, and Mom's not being kind by being nibby and nosy and enmeshed, etc., etc. And so what am I going to do? And neither of them know what to do about it. They just try to limp along and just kind of have this relationship. Out of John's ignited limbic system and chronic anxiety and his anxiety-filled relationship with Mom, he becomes reactive and overwhelmed. Mom also becomes reactive and overwhelmed because John's not answering the questions. So now both are going up in terms of their anxiety. And I'm telling you, it's not the questions or the problem that's the problem. It's this underlying anxiety that's not being managed that becomes the problem. He feels forced to do something reactively to ease his tension. Again, which he may not even be aware of. He tells her, well, Mom, I gotta go. I just wanted to call and see ya. And proceeds to get off the call quickly. He really doesn't know what to do, but to cut off from her. I just need to stop this. I just need to stop. And again, a cutoff, an emotional cutoff, is a distancing out of my immaturity. Again, going no contact is not a distancing out of my immaturity. That's a distancing out of my maturity. Cutoff is a distancing out of immaturity. To manage my immaturity. John does not address the question that Mom is asking. She doesn't address those questions, or the pattern, or boundaries, or his wishes or wants, or self-definition, or any of that. He doesn't do any of that. He just wants to get away. Now Mom's anxiety is triggered more, and she goes to John's dad and complains how oversensitive, impolite, uncooperative, and that John was on the phone. She also tells him that she is upset with John over his standoffishness. And she dumps her anxiety where? To Dad. Now we have a tension and anxiety between John and Mom. Mom then goes to Dad, tells him all about it. He then absorbs the anxiety from her. And again, chronic systems anxiety plus issues equals a disturbance in the force, a disturbance in the system. Issues minus chronic or systems anxiety equals self-differentiation and differentiated presence. So guess what? Dad now feels he should calm Mom down because Mom's upset. Their son has not worked well with Mom in her questioning because of her anxiety. And Dad absorbs Mom's anxiety. He borrows it. He takes it from her. He becomes a peacemonger. Not a warmonger, but a peacemonger, so he and she can get along better. Dad and Mom can get along better. And Dad drinks more to take care of and reduce his increased systems anxiety. And in some ways, he now absorbs his wife and his son's anxiety. Now it's all inside him. And he will act out, drinking more, being more frustrated, maybe more sullen, maybe more withdrawn, but at least tries to calm down Mom so that he and her can at least have some level of stableness. A day later, Dad calls and talks to John. Now, you're watching this anxiety and how it all moves. He then talks to John to try to get John to cooperate or accept his mother's behavior or her questions, stating, well, she's your mother, John. Mothers worry about their kids. So he normalizes mom's anxiety, mom's questioning. Mom only cares about you. Why do you want to hurt your mom so much? So he then, backdoor in a triangulated way, tries to get John to behave in a way to reduce mom's anxiety. But deep down, John has the sense that it's not mom caring about him so much, but caring about her own worry and anxiety and making herself feel better. And he has a sense of that, and he doesn't like that. John caves in and becomes a peacemonger like his dad, and promises Dad he will call Mom and answer all her intrusive questions out of anxiety, her anxious questions, to ease Dad's anxiety because he believes Dad drinks because of Mom. And he has bought that lie. And so, I don't want Mom to cause Dad more upsetness because he'll drink more. Now, John has the hot potato of systems anxiety. So now it's gone from John and Mom, and John started with some anxiety, John and Mom, Mom to Dad, Dad to John, and now John's going to be talking to Mom. And this hot potato of anxiety is moving all around. He calls Mom, apologizes to her, answers her questions. Mom shares her worry and anxiety. John reassures her and absorbs her anxiety by reassuring her, no, it'll be okay, everything will be fine. The status quo is maintained, the equilibrium is reestablished, the same amount of systems anxiety is reestablished in Mom, Dad, and John. There's been no change. It's just been hot potatoed around. No circuit breakers were implemented with the goal of lowering the system's anxiety in any of the parties involved. Well, what would have been some circuit breakers to reduce individual systems anxiety for anyone in the system, or at least for John? John could have made the move, Mom, I will be happy to answer your questions when it's necessary or when I would like to, stating that in a calm, matter-of-fact way. But I'd like to talk to you about other things today, Mom. Can we talk about some other things? How are you and Dad doing? How are things going at home? Dad could use a circuit breaker. He could tell his wife, you know, honey, I know you and John can work that out. Mom could have said, if there was some self-differentiation or maturity or growth or wanting to learn more, I know I get too worried and I become motherly, John, and you are an adult. You can share those feelings or those things with me when you want to. John could have said to Dad, as a John to Dad move, you know, Dad, I have no power over Mom's anxiety or her need to know questions. And there's no real need for me to answer all of her questions just to make her calmer. So Dad, just ask Mom to talk to me about it. And he detriangulates. And I remember even with my own son, because I know how difficult it is to have a child, and those of you who are parents who have adult children, children who are adults, you know how difficult it can be to kind of stop parenting. You know, really, parenting is done when they become an adult. We now are still their father, their mother, we're blood related, and we may have that kind of relationship, but we're adults to adults now. They don't need me parenting now, and it's often not welcomed. And so we as parents have to grow just as they have to grow up. And the more we grow up, the more they can grow up. The more they grow up, the more we grow up. And so, I would say to my own son or Andrew, all I want to do is give you advice. Just ignore what I'm saying. It's just a habit. So I know I give you advice, but pay it no mind. Now I've just taken the power out of it and the anxiety out of it. Now if I give advice, I recognize it's just blah, 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 blah. I said, that's just what I normally do. I'm just used to doing that. But pay it no mind, Andrew. I'm just being overly fatherly. And that takes the power out of that over-seriousness relationship we might have as parents, especially when our children are adults. I'm going to be sharing more about systems anxiety and systems feelings in the future and in future videos. I would suggest that you watch True Feelings versus Systems videos. True Feelings versus Systems Feelings video that I have on my YouTube channel. I hope you'll join this YouTube channel for, I think, $1.99 a month. It helps me produce more videos if you would do that. You can go to my website and rent and purchase videos and workshops I've done in the past. Remember the workshop coming up on the 17th, 2021, on a Saturday on Zoom. Please join up and join me for that workshop. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day and be wise.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Avaya University and our Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal curriculum. I'm Mike Allen, and this is my partner, Andy Anderson. We're the founders of Avaya and the online communities Enlightenment Village and A Course in Miracles Village.
Today's teaching from Avaya University and Jerry Wise explores reducing self-abandonment. You will discover how a family systems approach can help you better understand abandonment. You'll discover what self-differentiation is and why it's important in dealing with abandonment issues. And you'll discover how doing family of origin work can also help you with abandonment issues. All of these amazing insights and more are in this teaching from Avaya University and Jerry Wise. We hope you enjoy, apply the insights in your life, and share them with your friends and family.
And from all of us at Avaya, enjoy your journey, and thanks for letting us be part of it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal. I am your co-host, Andy Anderson. I am the co-founder of Avaya Media and Enlightenment Village with my partner, Ike Allen. Thank you so much for joining us again. And in this event, as you know, we are talking with really great people. We're talking with therapists, we're talking with doctors, with authors, with relationship experts, and they are sharing with us some really great tools and strategies to help us let go of our experiences of abandonment, of betrayal, so that we can live peaceful, powerful lives. And today our guest is going to be talking about reducing self-abandonment. So I am super excited about this topic. Please, everyone, welcome Jerry Wise. Hi, Jerry.
Hey, hi, Andy. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. I am so excited to have you, and I'm glad that our mutual friend Mark Smith recommended you, and he is also part of this event. So I want to I want to tell everyone a little bit about you and your work, and then we'll dive in, Jerry. So Jerry Wise is an international life coach, and he specializes in coaching self-differentiation, which is something I want to talk with you about, Jerry. So for 40 years, he has also been a professional in psychotherapy and family therapy, and now in life coaching. He's also been a professional musician, a pastor, therapist, consultant for family businesses, and a family systems expert and a popular speaker. So let's dive into abandonment. I know that the topic of this interview today is reducing self-abandonment. So could you start us off by telling us how you would describe abandonment and then what self-abandonment is?
And I think there's a lot of discussion about what is abandonment and how do we look at abandonment. And I believe when people, they will take their preconceived notions about what abandonment is and they take it to the information that's out there. My notion of abandonment is, the way I look at it is a much more zoomed out approach. In other words, let's say I just had a client I was talking to not long ago, and they were talking about how their father had abandoned the family. And so he felt abandoned, because his father had just left and left the family in the lurch and felt great abandonment over that. Now, if we look at an individualistic approach to that, then we'd say, well, he has abandonment issues, and so we should help him fix his abandonment issues. Now, that's not incorrect, but I'm not sure it's the whole picture. The whole picture is a zoom out in which, if we look at the whole family of origin, we see how that abandonment affects the emotional field of the whole family and affects the emotional field inside the client, or inside the young man who was talking about his abandonment. And so that then gives us a view to look at abandonment as having been discarded, left, rejected. Those are all different words, though, that have different meanings, but at least has some of those abandonment notions in them. And with the client who's been abandoned, they experience a loss, they experience a rejection or an abandonment in which they don't understand. Often, many times, they can be when they are young, and they will maintain the integrity of that parent, let's say, and that the dad left, but there must be something wrong with me. Not something wrong with dad. We got to maintain his integrity because I need his love and acceptance forever. So I'm going to paint him good, and then I paint me bad. Then I have abandonment issues. Now, we can also be abandoned as adults as well, of course. Someone can, but what I find most often is if an adult gets abandoned, they oftentimes have abandonment issues from long ago when they were children. So abandonment is when we experience an unexpected loss that creates a hole in us that we have not filled, and have difficulty filling. And then we can talk about what self-abandonment is like. And I didn't know if you want me to kind of explain that a little bit.
I would love that. I want to make a quick just response to what you said. I've never thought about it the way you just said it, how, right, if a child has the experience of being abandoned by a parent, that we want to maintain the integrity of that person. So, right, because they're our brick wall, they're our rock, they're our everything. And if we don't, right, maintain that integrity, then right, we're at risk. And so then we put it on ourselves that it's our fault. And there's still this, piece of integrity for us, like that loves us, but it's our fault. There's something wrong with us. We need to fix us. I love how you put that.
We are defective because they abandoned us.
Yes. Got it.
It must be our defectiveness. And because if you were to, and I've worked with families, couples, individuals for years and decades, and how many people will come to me and say, my parents didn't love me. You know how many times I've heard that in my whole career?
A lot.
Years? No. 5 times.
Really? Okay.
Because they say, I know they were awful. I know they did this. I know but they still love me.
I see.
They still maintain that integrity.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying they don't feel unloved by their parents, because there's that too. When you get beaten or if you get abused, you're not going to feel loved. But when I say, do you think your parents did not love you at all? Oh, no. They will defend parents even when the most horrendous things have happened.
Right.
Because we needed our parents so much that you can't degrade or denigrate their integrity, because I need them.
Right.
And if I get abandoned, even though dad was wrong for doing that, but Was it mom? Was it me? Was it, we internalize the reason.
Right.
And then we feel very broken and of course, dad doesn't come back and go, oh, by the way, son, I left and abandoned all the family, not because of you, but because I'm selfish and a narcissist. I just thought I'd let you know that. How many parents do that? I mean, that's not going to happen where that kind of clarity is. And please don't feel responsible. It's all my fault.
Right.
Because I'm the adult.
Mm-hmm.
And I love you, and let's have a relationship.
I would imagine, particularly if they're selfish narcissists, that doesn't happen very often.
Not often at all.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That is an amazing description of abandonment and how it can affect us. So yes, I would love to dive into self-abandonment.
Okay. And then, so what happens is when we get abandoned and we feel the ping of it, because there's a pinging going on in the emotional field. When we feel this circuit surge because of an abandonment or rejection or discarding or those kinds of things, when we feel that surge, again, what does it do to us? It wounds our sense of self. It creates pain, guilt, often shame, confusion, self-questioning, a lack of self-acceptance. Because, when someone abandons you, are you sure it wasn't your fault? And why would someone abandon you if you're totally wonderful? So even if they abandon you for the wrong reason, well, there's no good reasons to abandon somebody. Even if someone abandons you, again, we look for our failings. And particularly if we were children, then we know who it's our failings. So we internalize that, and then we end up abandoning ourselves. We take over the role that our parent who abandoned us, I'm just using that as an example. There are many other abandonments, but that's one. Death can be an abandonment, divorce, all kinds of ways in which we've been left.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the process of being abandoned, is being left. They're the lever and I'm the left one. Mm-hmm. And that can be very painful. And so if I'm the left one, what's wrong with me? I internalize this negative part about me because, my parent, my dad left us, and boy, I better be good so I can be loved and accepted. And I already messed up once, dad left. But what we do is we internalize it, and then no longer do we care for ourselves. Mm. And so we self-abandon. And I find that a lot of people who work on their abandonment issues do some work with their grief or loss issues about abandonment, because it hurts, or they feel sad, or they feel, rejected. And they do some grief work over that, but they don't do the stopping of the self-abandonment.
Right.
And so it continues on, and then they keep getting stuck and recycling in abandonment issues. Mm-hmm. It just keeps going, even though now I've dealt with that. I've talked to a therapist. I've talked to my pastor. I've talked to all my friends. I go to a recovery group, but I'm still get pinged by abandonment because you're still abandoning you. Mm. That may have been worked on, but you're still carrying on the self-abandonment. I think I had a note here. We don't learn to count on ourselves, and we can't count on ourselves because we will abandon ourselves, and we know it. Well, how do you think that helps our self-esteem deep down in our unconscious regions?
Poorly.
Very poorly. And so when I tell people, can you count on you? How people tell me, well, no. Mm-hmm. There's your issue. Mm. Now, I know you couldn't count on your dad. With that, we got worked out. Yeah. You've written letters to your dad. You've expressed feelings. You've cried over dad leaving, and he shouldn't have. But then we have, can you count on you, or are you going to be dad to you? Mm. Are you going to continue to be dad to you? We need to get you to count on you.
Right.
And they're going, oh, I don't even like me. I said, Of course.
Yeah.
Why would you'd abandon somebody you didn't like. And if we don't like us, you're not going to get your abandonment issues healed.
Mm.
To get them restored. You have to do something about the hole that's left in there, because you'll keep acting out that hole. I'll go marry an alcoholic. I'll go marry a narcissist. I'll go get into a job where I recreate my family of origin. And you don't know how many times we will recreate our family of origin in our work, in our church, we're going to recreate it because we bring all of us to the system.
Right.
And so people come back and go, my boss is just like my dad. My supervisor is just like my mom. The people around me act just like my brother and sister did. I go, yeah, makes total sense.
Right.
You're still abandoning yourself.
Right.
And so that's why you're sitting where you're sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that because I'm a genius. I only say that to give you another way of looking at this abandonment process so that you can heal further. That's what I want to say, because that was one of the biggest breakthroughs I ever had with abandonment issues, when someone helped me and confronted me about, well, Jerry, you're still abandoning you.
Right.
And I went, I do.
Right.
I don't like me. And I'm abandoning me. And I keep saying, I have abandonment issues with my dad. I have abandonment issues with my mom. I have abandonment issues with me.
Right.
That's where I haven't resolved it.
Thank you. This is awesome. Oh God, it's helpful. I would go so far as to say you are a genius, and I love it.
Well, if I was a genius, I'd be on a beach somewhere and just having someone pay all my bills.
There you go. All right. So what about family systems approach? I know this is something that you work with. So could you explain to our viewers what the family systems approach is and how can it help them better understand abandonment? Maybe you've already kind of touched on this, but could you dive in a little? Okay.
But I can dive in a little further. Let's see. If you were coaching a football team that was on a football field, and you had a Bluetooth, earphone, and the center, the person who hikes the ball, the center had a Bluetooth, and you're the coach. If the center told you everything that was going on, would that give you some information about how to coach the team?
Yeah.
Well, of course, it would give you some information. That's right. But it would only give you information from the center's point of view.
Yes.
Now, if we then take someone, put them at the ceiling of the stadium, looking down, seeing both teams and everything that's happening, then telling the coach what's going on and giving him some advice, do you think the coach would even do better?
Yes.
The coach would even do better. And because he has zoomed out his view. And so the limited view from just the center would say, oh, I see JR is over there, so I want you to send Smithy to the right. And the coach says, okay, tell Smithy to go to the right. We're going to go that way. The guy up here is going, oh, but he doesn't see the whole picture. You need to send Smithy to the left, not to the right, because I see the whole thing and what's going to happen after this and after that, the way they're lined up. The center doesn't see that.
Right.
Now the coach tells Smithy, no, Smithy, go to the left. Don't go to the right. In the view that you have, whether narrow or wide, defines what your solutions are going to be and will inform your decisions and your problem solving. So if you take a family systems perspective rather than just you and the world, you take you and the whole system and see how it operates and see how relationships operate, then that informs your decision making, your recovery, you're running left or running right, you will then make fewer errors. You'll have better problem formulation, and you'll move forward better with a more systems approach than just, okay, you're upset with your mom. Tell me about your anger. Okay, we're done for today.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing evil about that. It's just not a wide enough perspective. For example, if a couple comes to me and they argue all the time, I can take a more narrowed or what individualistic view of their problem, and they're arguing. That pulls me in to be the referee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're here to fight, and I'm supposed to save them from this fight. And Mary wants me to fix John, and John wants me to fix Mary, right?
Yes.
That's why they're here. You need to fix my husband, you need to fix my wife. And they argue all the time. And I can go, well, let me try to help you say different things when you argue. Let me try to help you be a better listener. There's nothing wrong with saying better things, nothing wrong with being a better listener. And in fact, Mary and John, here's some books you can read about how you can communicate better, or maybe how you can maybe argue less. That is if I have that perspective or paradigm, that's what I would offer them. If I have this perspective, which is a family systems perspective, I would then go, Mary and John, you guys fight all the time. Are you aware of that? Well, yes, that's why we've come here, for you to help us to stop it. And I go, well, I'm not sure you want to stop it, is first of all, because I think there are some upsides as well as some downsides to your arguing all the time. Because in a family systems perspective, everything is paradoxical. The bad has good sides and the good has bad sides. So that's always true in life. If I give up on my guilt, if I feel guilty all the time, do you know that if I get up on my guilt, it could really mess up my life and my anxiety? Because my guilt keeps me safe in some ways. So I have to be able to manage the anxiety before I can give up the guilt.
Got it.
Because if I stop feeling guilty, I may lose 3 friends and half my family. So I better hold on to my guilt because it keeps me connected to all them. Well, let's try to work that out so you can give up your guilt and not suffer with the downsides.
Right.
That's the way you put it together.
Mm-hmm.
So with John and Mary, I'd say, hey, Mary and John, you guys came to me and you said you feel so distant with each other. You're just so distant and you can't get close and you argue all the time. What if I were to suggest that you're actually enmeshed and you're too close? And that's why you argue so much. You ping each other too much. You have too much closeness. You need more distance so that you can be more close. Now, I've just shared with them a family systems perspective of what's going on with them. Do you think that might be more helpful, an approach and a road to go down, than here's a book and let's talk better?
Absolutely.
So that's why I value the family systems approach. It looks at the whole, and it looks at the underlying root causes rather than just the content. It looks at the process of what's going on. I don't care about their arguments. They would argue about anything. Usually they would say, I'd say, do you guys argue about really important things? Oh, no, not really.
Mm-hmm.
We just argue all the time about nothing. Because it's not about the arguments.
Right.
It's about managing distance. And it's about managing intimacy. And that's a broader view. And if we could look at that, then we go, well, you've just changed my mind about that. So we've just reframed it. And now their arguments are harder to have.
Right.
Why? Because I just exposed the game.
Exactly.
So now they're going, well, I want to fight, but that will just make us more. Jerry just messed up our whole way of doing our marriage. I'm glad I messed that up. What I wanted to do.
Cheers to that.
We could have a better marriage. Well, I've preached long enough.
There you go. So awesome. Thank you for describing that. And I love all of that and how I'm sure our viewers could relate to potentially a relationship they are in or a past relationship or something as far as like exposing the game, right? Exposing the game of arguing and what that is. So let's dive into self-differentiation. I think, yeah, self-differentiation. What is this? This is something you talk a lot about in your work, and could you tie it back into the abandonment topic as well?
I believe I could. Let me give that a try. And these are all big words, and they can be tricky because they sound so psychobabblish. But we're actually trying to use a shorthand to talk about an experience. So whenever you use a shorthand to talk about an experience, it can get wordy, or you can use weird words, like here's another word, undifferentiated closeness. That's just enmeshment, because it's closeness without any differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
You're just globbed together. Differentiated closeness is you are you, they are them, and you connect. That's self-differentiation. Differentiated closeness, where we balance the togetherness and separate forces in all of the family system, because it's all balanced on togetherness and separate forces. And if you don't balance those well, if they don't balance well in your life, you'll become over together, over separate. You'll fall off the edge on all those. We want to have an even, where I am me while connecting with you.
Right.
And that's a simple definition of self-differentiation. It's not my term. It's a Murray Bowen Family Systems term. He was the grandfather of family therapy. And the self-differentiation is self. In other words, self-differentiation is the family systems word for self-esteem.
Got it.
Because self-esteem is an individualistic notion. It doesn't really have much connection with other people. It's how I feel inside. Not a bad term. I use self-esteem. I use all the individualistic terms also. But I also want to go, but how much are you a self in a system? Because we are never not in systems.
Mm-hmm.
And Bowen would say, your family of origin is forever in you. So
Right.
it's not like, and one of the goals that I work on is how can we get them out of us so that we can be more of us,
Right.
and not just in my case, Wise, Wardwell, super self, would call it. That's my mother's maiden name and my dad's name. And I become the Wise, Wardwell super self that I'm a part of, but yet I'm still Jerry. I'm not much of Jerry. I'm just Jerry Wise Wardwell. Well, when am I going to be Jerry?
Mm-hmm.
Jerry, not Wise Wardwell. I'll always have some, but I want to be more me than more it.
Yes.
And so self-differentiation is the process of you differentiating from that clump that we've grown up in, becoming ourselves, maturing, becoming adults, and being able to connect with others. That's maturity. That's self-differentiation. I know where I end and where you begin.
Mm-hmm.
That's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not telling anybody it's easy.
Right.
I've been practicing this for a long time, and it's still tricky.
Mm-hmm.
But
So,
it's a worthwhile thing. Oh, and abandonment. I'm sorry, I didn't go to.
yeah, no, yes, please. Yeah. Attach though. So how does knowing more about that help someone, viewers watching right now who are dealing with these abandonment issues in their life?
Right. And I believe if we can reduce the enmeshment, we can reduce the abandonment.
Okay.
Because it's the enmeshment that pings us and gives us that pain about abandonment. And again, that enmeshment is a part of our fantasy and fairy tale life, that someone's going to love me like I always wanted them to. People are going to take care of me. People are going to, it's a fairy tale kind of world. And when we grow up as adults, we know, wait a minute, I'm going to have to take care of me.
Right.
Doesn't mean I can't find someone who doesn't love me or doesn't care about me, but I'm going to have to take care of me. Not mom and dad, not, and so I'm going to have to give up that fairy tale. Also, by being enmeshed, I think I will somehow get what I need, or at least my dependency needs. I'll get what I need. The problem is you don't. Enmeshment is always a failed process.
Mm-hmm.
Or we use the word codependency too. Enmeshment is the family systems term. Codependency is the chemical dependency term for that kind of dynamic. And if we are enmeshed, we don't get what we need.
Right.
So we want to work on enmeshment. Our abandonment issues will go down, and our abandonment pinging and our abandonment fears. Because it's only when you're enmeshed like this, you're going to have so much fear and anxiety.
Got it.
And so we want to reduce that. If you increase self-differentiation, being yourself, again, didn't I talk about how we self-abandon?
Yes.
If we start reducing our self-abandon and differentiate and be our real selves, be an authentic self, well, then we're not going to be self-abandoning so much, and it's going to reduce and it's going to go down, and we're not going to feel that pain. Somebody says, well, I just wonder about our friendship. And then we freak out and feel abandoned because we have an abandonment reaction. But if I'm more self-differentiated, if I'm more self-caring, and if I can count on me, I then don't get so reactive. And I can say, well, that's sad to hear. I'm sorry you feel that way. Can we talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
That's more of an adult approach rather than, oh my gosh, you're going to take away everything that's inside of me. Well,
Right.
that's because we're enmeshed.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So the self-differentiation goes hand in hand. The other thing we'll do if we self-differentiate, we will let go of some primary abandoners, because oftentimes we have a bunch of abandoners that we've collected over the years. And we can let go of some of those abandoners and find people who don't abandon.
Right.
I always was worried all the time that I was going to be abandoned, all the time. As a pastor, when I was younger, that everybody's going to leave me. Do you know what I was afraid of?
Mm-mm.
I would leave me. Because I couldn't count on me.
Right.
So I feared everybody was going to do this.
Right.
And so I have to work on that self and the sense of self so that I can then function in the system, which then feels like it feels very connected. And in fact, I don't know if can I mention an author's book?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Brene Brown, in her new book, Braving the Wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent book. In fact, I'll jump up here. The quest for true belonging and the courage to stand alone.
Mm-hmm.
Braving the Wilderness. And so it's the courage to stand alone while connecting and belonging. And she comes from the same background of Bowen Family Systems. So does Harriet Lerner, so does Brene Brown, so does Jenny Brown in her book, Growing Yourself Up. And we all share the same family systems notions.
Got it.
So I hope I haven't confused everyone with all this.
No, I think that's beautiful. And I'm really blown away by this conversation. I love talking about this. We did an Overcoming Codependency event last year that was amazing and just changed so many lives. And I still just get the chills thinking about it. And so this conversation is really bringing me, back into that as well, because it is really right. How is it that we can connect and have these amazing intimate relationships while at the same time self-differentiating, right? Maintaining ourself and not abandoning ourself. And I think that that's so key. So before we start wrapping up here, I want to ask you one question. So one thing we're doing for our audience is every interview in this Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal series, we're doing a challenge. So if you were to have an action step or an exercise or something that everyone could take on to help them reduce self-abandonment, what would that be? To put you on the spot.
Sure. No. And I would have 20 of them. But I'm trying to think of if I can share, it is the process of changing your paradigm versus taking action steps. Because if you have an inadequate paradigm and not looking in a family systems way, you can take all the actions you want and you'll still come up with the same problem, or you'll continue to recycle. So what I tell people to do is let's start out by learning how to see differently. How can we see differently? And that will take some learning, such as reading the book Growing Yourself Up by Jenny Brown. That would be where I would have someone start, rather than going, okay, you just need to tell all those people who abandoned you to go away. You can do that. And that may not even be a bad thing to do. But the problem is, a year later, you're going to have them all replaced with people who abandon you. So any step I give you, if the engine's not running right, it's gonna. So what I try to do is try to fix the engine. And so the engine, like reading Jenny Brown's book, Growing Yourself Up, watching the videos that I have up there, because that's why I put them up there for free also on my YouTube, so people can get that information. And then I work with people to help live that out and tweak that out and how they can apply that to themselves. Getting back to your question, is there anything I would, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. Begin to resist self-abandonment. Begin to notice it and begin to resist it and go, gosh, I think I'm just giving up on myself right here. I'm giving in. I've totally just disregarded me. I'm not going to do that right now. I may do it poorly. And by the way, I have a saying, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Because it's still worth doing.
Right.
So it's worth doing poorly. I'd rather you do it poorly than not at all. And so do it poorly to begin to resist self-abandonment. Begin to count on yourself.
Yes.
And that's self-love. We talk about self-love and self-acceptance, but I'm kind of talking about it from a systems perspective. But I could say self-love, but a lot of people, I like to put it into real operational terms. Like, let's stop self-abandoning. Stop leaving yourself in the corner and going on with whatever you're doing. And when somebody says, when mom says, well, you're coming on Christmas and you're coming Christmas Eve because that's the way we've always done it. Self-abandonment goes, okay, mom, I'll be there. That's self-abandonment. Because that's not what you want. It's not what you want to do. And you say, Mom, I know we've always done that. I understand the importance of that, but I have a different preference. And I'm not going to give up my preference. Now, how I deal with the fallout from that, I may need to talk to Jerry about. What do I do with the fallout? Because it's an ongoing process of staying self-differentiated. Because mom's going to retort. And there's going to be this dance going back and forth. And if you continue to work on that dance, you will find yourself coming out of the woods. And that's
Awesome. Thank you.
is helpful, but
It's amazingly helpful, and I appreciate it. And yes, everyone, please take that on. Start recognizing when you are self-abandoning and starting to resist it, and starting to look at the areas where you're not counting on yourself, or you're, what you just said reminded me of something my partner Ike says a lot, which is like, are you operating from inspiration, desperation, or obligation, right? And it sounds like, right, that scenario was like, oh, I'm obligated, or I feel obligated to go do this family time or whatever when I am inspired to do something different, right? So I love it.
the other thing nice about healing self-abandonment and recovering self-abandonment from self-abandonment is that it's a prophylaxis or a protection against abandonment. If I am not abandoning me, and I'm not going to, how can you abandon me?
Right.
How are you going to do that?
Right.
Now, I may feel upset that you've changed your mind, or there may be some real grief or loss, but nobody can abandon me if I'm not abandoning me, because
Right.
I'm still me and I still have me.
Right.
I'm not abandoned.
That's so good. I love that. Thank you. This is so amazing, Jerry. I really appreciate this. This is all super amazing information, and I'm so glad that we were able to do this. I would love it if you would share how people can learn more about you, and we will also have we'll have a button below this video, and it'll lead them over to your website. So you might just say your website or wherever else you want, your YouTube channel, that kind of stuff.
Well, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and all of those would be under Jerry Wise Relationship Systems.
Okay.
And then I do have a website by that same name, www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. And you can get on my mailing list, or you can contact me. And my contact information is on all the videos on the YouTube channel. So those are all there, and they're all free. And so I think you would benefit from them. And then if anyone wants to work with me, they can contact me.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. Please, everyone, take advantage of all the great free videos and free stuff that Jerry has, and work with him if you're inspired, because this is a great, amazing stuff. I'm totally blown away by it. I appreciate everything you've said today. Are there any last insights or anything you feel like you left out, or we could talk for hours more, but any last tidbits you want to share before we hop off?
I had a note here that, and I think that the issue of learning to count on yourself is what's so important. And we have been taught not to. And we can increase in that area, and also learn to be our age. I don't have to live like a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old in a 64-year-old body. I can learn to be a 64-year-old, and I never thought that was possible. I never thought that was possible. So I think there is a way out, and there is a way to change. And I want to give hope about that to folks.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jerry. I love it. You have definitely given hope and so much more. I appreciate everything that you've said, and thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Andy, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate you being patient and tolerant with all my gab, and it was great to be on the workshop today.
It was my pleasure. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into Jerry's interview. And here once again is to our journey to breaking free from abandonment and betrayal. Bye, everybody. Hey everyone, I wanted to shoot a quick wrap-up video for you from this last interview with Jerry Wise. I love this man. I thought his message was so powerful. It touched me in my own abandonment issues in my life in so many ways, and I really hope that you guys got a lot out of it, as did I. So one of the first things that Jerry said that I really wanted to touch on was how a lot of us, right, have had these experiences of being abandoned as a child, right? It might have been a parent, or a death, or something like that, a divorced parent, a parent who leaves, those kinds of things. So one thing I thought was just so interesting was how he said that we maintain the integrity of the parent who abandoned us because we need them to love us. And I've had my own experiences as a child when my father and mother got divorced, and I never quite realized how much I did that same thing, really, until Jerry just said that. So how many of you can relate to the fact that you may have maintained the integrity of that parent because they were your rock, they were your brick wall, they were that person that was you required love from. And if they left, then you had to maintain the integrity of them. And so if it wasn't something that was going on in their life or a challenge they were having in your life, which is why they left, then it must have been because of you. So you internalize it. I just thought this was so powerful. So if this is something that you recognize in your own life, in your own past, be aware of it, shine light on it. This is just an amazing acknowledgement in your life if this is something that you can relate to. So I wanted to touch on that because I related to it so much. And then this really tied into Jerry talking about our self-abandonment. So if this is an experience you've had, or you've had a similar experience of abandonment in your life, right, we can make it our fault because we want to maintain that integrity of that parent or somebody else who we looked up to. Making it our fault is a way to eventually start to abandon ourselves, right? Because we're no longer caring for ourselves. We're saying something's wrong with us. Something must be wrong with us. So we abandon ourselves. And this is how all of these abandonment issues, this recreating the past, starts to come into our future. This is how we can have relationships over and over again cycle in our life. And we have this continual experience of abandonment, of betrayal, of being left, those kinds of things, because we have literally stopped caring for ourselves. We have literally stopped loving ourselves because we started telling ourselves when we were a kid that it was our fault, right? That person left, or they didn't choose me on the kickball team, or whatever the experience was for you. So just take this information in. This is very powerful stuff that Jerry shared today. And another thing I wanted to touch on real quick was this self-differentiation. I mentioned it during the interview. It reminded me a lot of the conversations I had with people in our Overcoming Codependency event, which was so amazing and magical to me. It was one of my favorite things I've ever done, actually. And it reminded me a lot of that because we talked a lot about this self-abandonment, this, difference between being enmeshed with your partner and being whole and complete on your own, but connected to your partner. So what Jerry was talking about was the self-differentiation, being able to recognize yourself as a different person from your partner, or a friend, or a parent, or a family system in the case of Jerry, and standing on your own, but also being connected. So he talked about how when we reduce enmeshment, it reduces our abandonment or our fears of abandonment, because we're starting to count on ourselves, we're starting to rely on ourselves and care for ourselves again. So, another thing he said was, if I'm not abandoning me, it's actually protective from, being abandoned, from having the experience of being abandoned. So all really powerful stuff. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And I at last wanted to touch on the challenge that Jerry gave us, was to just start to notice when you are self-abandoning, when you are disregarding yourself, when you are giving up on yourself, when you are not counting on yourself, and start to begin to resist that. Recognize it, start to begin to resist it. And we'd love it if you'd share your experience of that in the Facebook group and take on this challenge today. All right, everyone, thank you so much once again for tuning into this conference and tuning into this last interview with Jerry Wise, and we'll see you on the next one.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a life and relationship coach. I've been helping individuals, couples, and families for over 40 years. And this program, podcast, video is entitled, "The Problem is Not the Problem." I remember reading in a book called Change by Paul Waltz-Lewick and John Weekland and Richard Fish. And I remember reading a long time ago in this book where they talk about, we smiled at the joke about the drunk who is searching for his keys, not where he really lost them, but under the street lamp, because that's where the light is the best. And we go looking under the street lamp in our relationships for solutions. We don't look at where the problem is. We don't look at where the root of the problem is. We look where the light is the best. Well, that may not help us find our keys. Problem formulation, or how you see the problem, is everything in relationship problems. How we formulate the problem will determine the solution. Every question that I get comes out of someone's way they view the problem. So in the question that you ask, or any question you ask, is a tell about how the problem is formulated. And the problem is not the problem. What is said and done is not what's going on. We tend to see people rather than patterns as a problem. We tend to see the content, not the process of what's going on. And then we try to solve our relationship system problems, marriages, friendships, work relationships. Learning how not to look at the magician is the way to see what's going on in a magic show. Don't look where the magician wants you to look, because that will keep up the game, and it will keep up the magic. When the magician says, when magician is making a point about this, he may be doing something down here so that the magic can happen. He redirects your looking. Well, that's what happens to us in relationships as well. Our families, marriages, workplaces, and relationships are all magic shows with sleight of hand, misdirection, and distractions. And we have, as Murray Bowen once said, observational blindness about what's going on. And that's how magicians work, is by observational blindness. We blind ourselves either by sleight of hand or misdirection, and then the magic happens. A relationship system is full of sleights of hand, misdirection, and distraction, which is hidden by observational blindness, naivety, denial, distortion. And when we have denial, when we have distortion, then that feeds into the observational blindness, and we can't see what's going on in a relationship. Systems thinking views problems as symptoms. Let me give you an example. A wife doesn't call her husband during the day, and the husband becomes sour, hurt, and he comes home and confronts his wife, "You didn't call me today." And she says, "Well, I was busy with the kids and laundry, talking to my family on the phone for an hour or so. I couldn't get them off. And I also had to run errands." "Well, you never seem like you care about me. I call you lots," he says. "You always seem to choose your family over me. I don't even know why I keep trying. It's just hopeless. You're just hopeless." She says, "Well, why do you always put me down? You act just like your father when you do that." And he says, "Well, if you wouldn't spend so much time calling your family, maybe you would think about me." And now we have an observational blindness relationship argument. If I ask her what the problem was, what would she answer? "My husband is always critical and I can never do anything right. He just expects too much of me." He would answer, "My wife never reaches out to me. I don't feel like she even cares. I've asked her and asked her if she could just make a call and see how I'm doing. She doesn't treat me as though I'm even special to her at all." This is what I would call linear thinking, only looking at the surface, and a simple cause and effect thinking, not a zooming out thinking. which comes with maturity and self-differentiation. How is their problem formulated? Blaming, looking outwards. For them, the problem is the problem. For her, the problem is him. For him, the problem is her. George Berkeley, a philosopher once, an author from the 1700s, said, "Oftentimes we first raise the dust and then we claim we cannot see." Both husband and wife here are raising the dust and then cannot see. The couple will ask themselves, why does he or she do that? They may then ask, why do I do that? Or why do I get reactive? I don't know, but it's because she's making me or he's making me. But often they come up empty. Albert Einstein once said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when creating them." And he was very wise in that perspective. Maturity, self-differentiation, allows you to use a new thinking rather than an old thinking. Family systems thinking also helps us to think, in a new way. The couple is not seeing how they function in their marriage and how they are suffering in the same way as they did growing up. They are still entranced and blinded by their family of origin functioning within them. We tend to get in a trance or hypnotized by our family of origin and imprinted, and therefore many other relationships in our lives. This is what I call the family trance. Well, couples can have trances too. The couple trance. The couple cannot see what their problems are since they are stuck in their family trance. I also believe they have a self-knowledge problem and an allergy to intimacy. And neither of them see that. They just see what they're doing wrong, and he sees what she's doing wrong, and she sees what he's doing wrong. When someone comes to me for help, I want to look beyond the problems and look away from the problems. Because if I look away from the complaint, the content, and the symptom, that can be very, very healing and insightful. It is not that content doesn't matter. The problem or argument they're having does matter, but it is symptomatic. It's not at the root of why they're having this argument. The real deeper problems or root problems are his neediness and triangle thinking and feeling. His false expectations that if his wife did what he wanted, it would fix or help him, and he would be made to feel more special. He is truly upset over never feeling special or wanted. This gets overlaid onto the marriage. The husband has an empty bucket syndrome, a bucket with holes in it from growing up. But he wants his wife to fill that. And why isn't she doing it? Because we're married, aren't we? And I show her all of these things. She should be showing me all these things. I treat her special, so she should be treating me special. And in fact, that's why we often treat them special, because it's what we want. But it's often done in a codependent way. In other words, I'm doing it to get, because I need you to fill my bucket. Her problems are not that he is always so critical, but that his criticalness triggers her unresolved family issues of always being criticized and never being able to do enough, which is why she spends so much time on the phone with her family to get their love and acceptance. She does it so much with her family, she has little left to give her needy husband and then resents him for it. And then they argue out of these boxes they live in. The boxes they live in, they just argue out of them. And they out of those boxes. And they cannot get out. The real problem in their response to the problem, the real problem is their response to the problem, not the problem and their limited problem formulation, how they see it. This is how I would understand the problem in a role play. And I'll try to help the wife self-differentiate. A wife doesn't call her husband during the day, and the husband becomes sour and hurt. He confronts his wife. You didn't call me today. The wife, instead of defending herself and feeling and re-engaging those feelings of family of origin that she has, of never being able to do enough, and by recognizing that, she then might be able to say, well, Bob, does that bother you? Rather than, I'm the cause, does that bother you? Well, you never seem like you care about me. I call you lots, he says. You always seem close to your family over me. I don't even know why I keep trying. It's hopeless. Bob's neediness is coming out from his family of origin as it operates inside him. And the wife responds, I know you have said many times you would like me to call you, but I struggle with that request. Do you not think I care about you? Instead of, why do you always put me down? Da, 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 da. And then the husband, of course, in his response, well, if you wouldn't spend so much time calling your family, maybe you would think about me. And she tells her husband, I don't think it's my relationship with my family that is the problem. I think it's how you feel about how I feel about you. Maybe I could find some other ways to show this to you. I'm not simply trying to get the couple to have some insight, because it's not simply insight that helps, though that helps, but I want to resolve the issues, for example, that would make it hard for the wife to give those responses. So as we do the role play, why would that be hard for you, Mary, to give those responses? And that would bring up her issues from family of origin. If I did the same thing with the husband and his responses, he would then become more enlightened about what are the struggles that he's having inside. And they're not exactly because of Mary. Looking at your issues and looking at the issues you bring to the relationship and focus on your own functioning will help clarify and resolve and heal a relationship. The problem is not the problem. I hope you'll listen to more of my videos. I have a May 30th, 2020 workshop coming up. I'd like you to join. I hope you'll listen to this also on my podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, and all the other major streaming apps. And please subscribe to this channel. You can also click the bell next to subscribe so that every time I put out a new video, you'll be notified of that. Also, my own music is on Anchor FM or Spotify as well. You can find it under my name. There's still time to register for the workshop. Go to my website and sign up. And I appreciate you watching today, and I hope you have a great day.
Hi everybody, my name is Jerry Wise, and this program is entitled Healing from Your Narcissist System. And I've been a life and relationship coach for over 40 years. I've been helping people in many ways over these many years. Now I do life and relationship coaching. I use a family systems approach to helping people learn to self-differentiate. I also work with ACOAs, adult children of alcoholics, adult children of narcissists, and many family problems and many individual problems that I've worked with over the many years. And again, this program is entitled Healing from Your Narcissist System. What I want to do in this program is to broaden your scope and to zoom out regarding narcissistic relationships. In using a family systems approach, I think it's very important that we take from family systems the ability and the theory to zoom out to see our relationships in context. And what that really means is our relationships, as we zoom out and include our family of origin at present, our family of origin in the past, and our current functioning in the present. And as we zoom out to see all of that, the narcissistic relationships that we have been in make a lot more sense. It also gives us the guidance and paths to exit a relationship with a narcissist and to heal and recover from narcissism and its abuse. There are many good books out there about healing from narcissistic relationships, offering some of the steps you can take to recover. They focus on your pain and you and your patterns with the narcissist. But they actually keep a rather zoomed in approach rather than a zoomed out approach. They're helpful, they can be useful, and I think they are ones that can be help us to recover. I have used those in my own recovery from narcissistic relationships, and they really do give us some what is normal, what should you expect, those type of dynamics, which is very important for us. Today, I'd like to take a family systems approach and a zoomed out approach to narcissistic relationships. I want to use this family systems model to help those of us who have suffered painfully and who are in narcissistic relationships. Maybe you're in a narcissistic relationship right now, or maybe you've been able to get away from a toxic relationship and you're in the process of healing and recovery. The key point, one of the key points I want to make today is that a narcissistic relationship fits into a larger picture of our emotional landscape, or what we might say in family systems world, our emotional field. This awareness can help us out of a narcissistic relationship and can help us to recover. I and my associates train clients every day to look at a larger picture of their emotional life. It gives them more insight, more awareness. It shows them better the lay of the land and the map they're using to navigate problems and to head towards a healthier future. But if that map is incomplete, if their GPS is broken, if they don't see a broader perspective, then we will end up hitting our shin on the table. We will end up falling into potholes. We will end up tripping over things that we don't see. And that's why I think the more we see, the more we can recover and the faster. I urge those that I have worked with to take, I've urged them to take in their life, their family of origin life growing up, and current functioning in their family of origin at present. Take in all of that information as you're making decisions and as you're healing and as you're recovering. The benefits provide more objectivity, less self-blame, less naivety, or we might also say observational blindness. It provides more awareness and greater understanding for ourselves. Anything that does that, I'm for. And I think for example, a Bowen family systems approach is one that can provide much more help in that area, as it has for me. Seeing our lives from a bird's eye view, a bird's eye perspective, can really give us greater knowledge of ourselves and others, and give us paths towards a greater maturity, healing, and strength. One of the questions that I ask, and this is always a direction I always like to go, how does being in a narcissistic relationship fit into your family system at work within you presently. Now let me repeat that. How does being in a narcissistic relationship or having been in a narcissistic relationship fit into your family system at work within you? And I want to break that down just a little bit. In fact, let me use an example of Jeannie, who's a 50-year-old nurse, and she was raised by a narcissistic mother. She's married to a husband who's also a narcissist, or at least has many narcissistic traits. She continued to try to heal her relationship with her mother with hope and holding on to the fantasy of having the mother she always wanted. She continued to try to be good enough to change mom, to have mom get some insight, to perfect mom, to help mom heal, so that she could have what she always wanted and needed. Similarly, we stay fused to our narcissistic relationship as adults and to those toxic relationships to try to get that fantasy fulfilled. So it begins in childhood. Into adulthood, we continue to try to make that fantasy be fulfilled and to get the love, acceptance, caring that we've always wanted. And so we will fuse on to a narcissist who will reenact, and we will reenact what I had in my family of origin. And actually what I may be doing now as adult with my family of origin still. So it's not only the past functioning, it's the present functioning, and then how it fuses me to a narcissistic relationship. And I think thinking of it in those terms, I think there's much more chance of freeing yourself from that. Because if we can free ourselves from our original fantasy, pain, dreams, trauma, and abuse, then we are much less likely to fuse and to continue that pattern with an adult relationship who reenacts what I had many years ago and what I may currently be having now. Jeannie would take mistreatment, put downs, rejection from her mother just to win her over. And again, she would just accept all of that, hoping she would then get out of her role as the scapegoat or all of the role that she's been playing in her family. Her siblings were also caught up in this narcissistic family cycle, and they would reject and become intolerant of Jeannie, believing the role Jeannie has played in her early in her life as the one who is oversensitive, over-complaining, difficult, and as one who just can't get over things. Of course, in her marriage, she would hear the same things from her husband, who is a narcissist. Well, you're just oversensitive. You just complain too much. You're just difficult. And you're just one who just can't get over things, besides other kinds of mistreatment that we can get from narcissists. But there is that similar theme playing out again in our adult relationships. Now, her husband, again, would state those kinds of things that she had from growing up and in her present adult relationship and how her family operates within her as an adult. And he would say those type of things and accuse her of all the things that would just mirror what had happened to her when she was younger and as an adult, while her husband himself was unaware of how his behavior and his lack of feelings affected her, and lack of empathy. He would become defensive and lack that empathy when she would suggest they work on their marriage. Well, of course, there's no reason to work on the marriage because you're the one with the problem, not me. Much like in her family of origin growing up, and her adult relationship family of origin pattern, in which the family was still doing the same ostracizing of her and painting her in such a negative light. And so now Jeannie is caught in the double vice of the family of origin dynamics and marital relational dynamics of narcissism. She's caught growing up, caught as an adult with her family currently, and now caught in her relationship with a narcissist. And of course, she was miserable. She could not see her way clear, could not see her way out, and could not change enough to make people change or to be happy with her. She continually blamed herself for not being healthy enough, emotionally stronger, kind enough, Christian enough, tough enough, and all those other enoughs that are there. And as Jeannie began her work with me, she began to see more clearly her role growing up as a child and how clear that became and how much pain there was there that she could begin to heal and let go of and process through. So first she began to, let's start with the first vice in which we're caught in a vice. Let's start with the first vice, our family of origin growing up. And then we looked at how is it repeated in her adult life? How is she dealing with her family of origin now? And actually we saw a lot of the same dynamics were happening now as they were when she was 10 and now she's 50. But the family still operates in the same way. And it would operate in her the same way. And then we take a look at how is it operating in her marriage now. And then we would see all of the dynamics in all three vices that we were caught in. And so if we can begin to loosen that vice through healing and recovery, dealing with our pain, dealing with our beliefs, dealing with all of those, that inward work, then we begin to find that loosens up, adult relationship with family of origin loosens up, family of origin of childhood loosens up, and then we loosen up the relationship with the narcissist because we're not caught in this vice and this where we can't get out. We are caught in this situation that we cannot free ourselves. She also began to see more and more how her family of origin was still at work in her, that the family was still in there. Even though she doesn't live in the family, she has her own family, her own kids, grandkids, but the family of origin was still very alive in her. She would go to work, and if there was anything that would trigger her, like when she grew up, she would also have these triggering and reactivity. And so her family was still at work in her. Her family of origin was still creating systems feelings of shame, guilt, rejection, and abandonment. I would recommend you watch my video on systems feelings versus true feelings, because those systems feelings were imprinted long ago, and now they are there to keep us in the same role, to have us functioning in the same way in the family, because those feelings are the fences that go up that keep us in our box. Because if we feel shame and guilt, rejection, and fear abandonment, then we will behave the way we're supposed to think and behave within the family and keep our role going. Her family of origin was still creating systems thoughts as well. I'd like to do a video on systems thinking, systems thoughts, and our real thoughts. Her family of origin was still creating systems thoughts that she was bad, unworthy, never good enough, and defective. And she believed the way others saw her as being true. But that's beliefs that have been imprinted and are to stay in there, so you stay in your box and in your role. And the system needs you for the equilibrium and the homeostasis and the stability of the family. We need you to stay in that box. Don't you dare come out of it. So you feel what the system creates, you think what the system creates. That's very important. These unresolved feelings and thought patterns set her up for finding her husband who fits the family system within her to a T. She married him and thus continued in pain, frustration, self-doubt, fear of abandonment, and would pendulum her life back and forth between compliance and caregiving and giving in to anger and resentment, irritation, frustration, and then we just go back and pendulum back and forth. Rather than landing in the 90-degree mark, rather than 0 to 180, because 180 degrees from sick is still sick. 90 degrees from sick is not sick. It's balanced. And so what she's been working on is, of course, her self-differentiation so she can live at a 90-degree mark and not pendulum back and forth, which only keeps the systems going and keeps the system going. If we're doing the pendulum life, that will just maintain an unhealthy, dysfunctional system. She lived a life of triggering from those unresolved wounds as a child, thoughts that she was taught, and the current wounds inflicted by how her family of origin operates within her even presently. And it was quite amazing to hear her talk about her family of origin and how they operate now, today, is almost identical with the way it was operating when she was a child. In her recovery and healing, she began to go inward and face her fears, her beliefs, her painful childhood growing up with an alcoholic father and a narcissistic mother. Her recovery took her to going inward, so she can begin to become more aware, begin to look at feelings, which the family, of course, that's antithesis to the family. The family doesn't want to be aware and doesn't want to go inward and look at feelings. That's another thing we learn in a dysfunctional family. Oftentimes, we go outward to end a relationship with a narcissist, and then we go inward to heal. In other words, going outward is that stopping the behaviors and the things we're doing, our actions. Going inward is looking at how our feelings and our emotional system works and the pain and feelings that we need to identify and to heal. Too often, victims of narcissistic abuse go inward to manage their relationship with a narcissist and go outward and look outward regarding themselves. And what I mean by that, if I can explain, we go inward with the unhealthy relationship. Same with family of origin. We go inward to control our triggering to survive with the narcissist's onslaught of mistreatment. And we work very hard to use our empathetic skills to understand and help change the narcissist or the narcissistic family. And so we'll do all this internal work about them and about what they're doing and about perfecting them, etc. Then we go outward when dealing with ourselves. So we're doing just the opposite of what we should be doing, but I'll come back to that. We go outward when dealing with ourselves. And so when it comes to my anxiety, my pain, my trauma, my feelings of rejection, I'm not going to go inward about those because those are too painful. So I will go outward and caretake, comply, be less of a problem, be less of a burden, behave in a way to try to get love. And this soothes our anxiety and the painful triggers which upset us. But it only soothes us for a time. It's only a quick fix. We outwardly overeat, become religiously addicted, overwork, overfunction, and try harder to make others love us. But we have it reversed. Go outward with the narcissist and stop the behavior that you are doing. Go inward to heal. I suggest using a combination of inner child work, inner adult work, self-differentiation and family systems work for those who are intent on recovering from addictive narcissistic relationships. The focus on a wider system and the inner work, I believe, is the best combination for healing. So I like to zoom out so that we have a better map to operate on, and then go inward to heal and recover ourselves. There are some good authors out there. Ones that just come to mind are Marjalis Fjellstad, F-J-E-L-S-T-A-D, Margaret Paul, Jenny Brown, Roberta Gilbert, Andrea Schara, S-C-H-A-R-A, John Bradshaw, about inner child work, homecoming and inner child work. And so if you have a combination of a family systems approach and healing the inner you, I think that's the most helpful way to heal. I hope you will follow me on YouTube and hit the subscribe button so you can be one of my subscribers. And if there's a new video I put up, it gets sent to you. I hope you'll join my podcasts that are on Spotify and all the major streaming apps. I have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and I put new posts up there, new quotes to encourage you. We're even thinking about doing some meditation podcasts that I think might be really healing for folks. I also would recommend you join at least the bronze plan on my website and join a group monthly call. That's the silver plan. The bronze plan gives you all of the exclusive content. The silver plan gives you all the exclusive content plus a monthly call with me, and I meet with just the silver plan folks where I answer questions from them. I want to thank you very much for listening today. Have a great day and be wise.